Everything went wrong for our daughter that night. Everything. Everything.
Vicki Schieber's daughter Shannon was raped and killed in her dorm room in 1998. Prosecutors said it was the kind of heinous crime the death penalty was made for, but Schieber decided she didn't want death for her daughter's killer, and today is working to abolish the death penalty in her home state of Maryland. There are just 5 men on Maryland's death row, a state that has executed just 5 people in the last half century. But the state is the new front in the fight over capital punishment, and if Governor Martin O'Malley has his way, it will be outlawed this year. The energy pushing repeal forward is the passion of people like Vicki Schieber. To understand how Schieber ended up holding a bullhorn outside the State House in Annapolis, Maryland, you need to go back to 1998, when after the initial shock and anger of her daughter's murder, Schieber says she realized what Shannon would want.
My daughter was a person who was very involved in social justice causes. She thought, you know, there's a problem out there, Mom and Dad, what are you doing about it? What are we going to do to change this? So I knew nothing about this death penalty. And then it's like I kept hearing her saying, Mom, now you're learning about this. This is a terribly biased, unfair system. Look at all the people that have been exonerated. What are you doing about it? Now you know. What are you going to do about it? Well, I think I have to tell my story. We have to talk about you, Shannon, and tell them what I think you would have wanted us to do. And that is to get rid of this death penalty system.
You reached this position through prayer or through reason or through emotion?
Some people say, well, maybe that's saintly or something, you're very holy. I said, well, maybe it's selfish too. You know, it's the people who get so angry at this, and that anger just envelops them. There's high rates of divorce among murder victims' families. There's terrible unemployment problems. There's a lot of poor health issues because they wait for years and years. They're told that they're going to find peace and justice when they execute that person or when they, you know, sentence them. But they may wait 15, 20 years if it ever happens at all.
Instead, when Shannon's killer was finally found 4 years after the murder, justice, though not lethal, was swift.
He didn't want the death penalty, and we didn't want him to have it. We wanted him life without the possibility of parole. But in 5 weeks, he was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. And we could let all that negative energy, that horrible feeling, that wanting to be angry, all drain out of our bodies and fill up with positive energy to do something to honor our daughter instead of waiting 15, 20 years or whatever it takes.
But that swift justice Schieber says eased her pain could actually become less common, according to one Maryland state senator, if the death penalty is taken off the books.
You know, I don't take pleasure out of seeing somebody, you know, get executed, but the value is that it's a fantastic plea bargaining tool. And state's attorneys from every jurisdiction will pull you to the side and they'll say, look, when I go for the death penalty, I have a good chance of getting a plea, and the plea is life without parole, which means that person will never walk the streets again. And the best example I can give you is Sarah Foxwell. She goes missing, they find her body, and about 48 hours later they find the guy who did it, and his defense attorney within a week came back and said, we don't want to take the chance, we'll accept life without the possibility of parole. And if the worst sentence that was on the books at the time was life without parole, they won't accept life without parole because it'll be the ultimate penalty.
Right.
And in 25 or 30 years, nobody's going to remember the name of Sarah Foxwell. And this guy will be in his 50s, and to give him a chance to walk is unthinkable.
But Governor O'Malley, long an opponent of capital punishment, says death row is costly and unjustly applied. In the state Senate, the votes he needs seem to be there, and while Marylanders still favor capital punishment, it's by an increasingly narrow margin. The most impassioned voices in the debate are people like Vicki Schieber.
Do you know that there's a death certificate for everybody that's put to death by the state? You know what it says on the cause of death on that death certificate? Homicide. It's a state homicide. So we looked at it this way. If we were the ones fighting, pounding on the table, we want him dead, we want him dead, get him dead. It's like our name was on that death certificate. And I can't live with that. I couldn't live with that.